Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Siddhartha Bandyopadhyay. So I am from Bechtel, India. So I'm basically a decarbonization specialist. I look after various energy transition technologies and carbon capture in Bechtel for the global projects. So today my topic is on sustainable aviation fuel, which is one of the advanced fuels being considered for today's date. So to start with, next slide, please. Next slide, please. So today's topic is I'm just going to cover is the what is sustainable aviation fuel and what is the need of it. So many of us know that okay why it is required, but we will just touch base that okay why actually it is required with some facts and figures, and then there are a couple of ways available. In fact, multiple ways available to produce this sustainable aviation fuel SAF. And among those, which one is more prominent for the today's date? So we will just try to touch base on one of the technologies. So I'm not going to detail up any technology, but just I will just explain that what is the basis and what are the challenges on that. Next slide. So sustainable aviation fuel is basically, you can see that, okay, it could be two types, either biofuel or e-fuel, e-SAF basically. So biofuel, how biofuel is produced, so it depends on that what kind of actual feedstocks we are using. So feedstocks, if we are using the municipal solid waste or any biomass as the feedstock, so it comes under the biofuel category. And whereas e-SAF is basically it will producing SAF from utilizing the CO2 and green hydrogen directly in the converting it into the syngas and further converting it into the liquid through the Fischer-Tropsch liquid process or some other means, and finally producing the sustainable aviation fuel which meets the ASTM guidelines. So in terms of ASTM guidelines, basically, so we have this for conventional jet fuel, we have ASTM 1655, which determines the specifications for this conventional jet fuel that is being used as on date. And if we want to use SAF, so SAF has to be produced to the ASTM D7566 guidelines. And finally, these two products has to be mixed up and is a blended basically, and to come up with the final jet fuel, which again will be certified basically. Authenticity is very important. So certification of authenticity will be based on the ASPM 1655. So this is the basic purpose. So next slide. So why SAF? So you can see that as on date, almost 3% of global greenhouse gas emission is being done by the aviation industry. And aviation industry don't have a much clues available to basically abatement of these emissions, especially the CO2 emissions. So they have many studies have been done, and it is found that 65% of aviation's emission can be basically reduced just by using SAF. So that means that okay, we need more and more SAF production to meet the net zero targets in the time frame of 2050 to 2060. So in fact, to meet that target, so huge quantity of aviation fuel will be required. So those figures are there in the next slides. So already there are multiple regulations already have come up. Latest one was I was just showing that is from the European Union. So there are some certain mandates to use of the SAF as a blending product for every jet which is taking off from the taking off from the any European airport. So that requirement will grow up with time. They have given the certain mandates. So that is the driving force basically for the SAF production. SAF production, of course, through these routes that I am talking about is very, very expensive, and there are technical challenges also that I will just touch base after this. So if we talk about the feedstocks for the biofuel production for SAF, so there are three kinds of feedstocks, basically categories. First generation, second generation, and third generation. First generation is basically which is basically your food grades materials like your rapeseed oil or sugarcane, etc. Which is of course through this route we have been producing SAF. It is nothing new in it, but the question is about the sustainability. So now we need the gigatons of SAF basically. So that cannot be made just through through this route. Okay, we are making SAP through this route up to certain quantity, but that will be not sufficient. And also within the industry, within the SAP industry, basically, there is some controversies whether really these first generation feedstocks can be considered as a sustainable feedstock or not, because they have some food values, of course, within it. So second generation is, of course, the FOGs, which is basically waste fats, oils, grease, which are definitely comes under the sustainable category, and this is the most prominent SAP production feedstocks for the today's date. And in fact, most of the SAPs are getting produced through these second generation feedstocks only. But problem is with that, this meets, of course, the sustainable definition, because these are all the waste materials. But problem is with that the quantity. Now we are talking about the gigatons, billion liters. So these things are not possible to meet through this, only through these routes. So then the importance of the third generations comes after this. Third generation is basically the any kind of waste. Waste means it could be agricultural waste, biomass, forest waste, or the municipal solid waste, or commercial and industrial waste. So all these things can be converted as a feedstock, it can be used as a feedstock to produce SAP. So this is the third generation is going to be the driving factor, and in the future, maybe in 2050, 2060, in that time frame, we can see all the SAPs are getting produced through these routes. Although these routes are very, very expensive, and from technology point perspective also, there are many, many challenges that as an industry person we are facing on every day. Next slide, please. So this is basically this is nothing new. This is ASTM pathways, which are established pathways presently. That as per these pathways, there are certain from which route you are producing which kind of SAP, basically, whether it is first generation route or second generation feedstock route or third generation feedstock route. Based on that, how much SAP you can blend with the basically the jet fuel, conventional jet fuel. So that is limited. So blending limit is 50% for the third generation feedstock, whereas blending limit for the first generation feedstock is limited up to 10%. So these are the approved pathways, but there are other pathways, another 5 to 6 pathways already in progress and certification stage, which will also come up in the coming days. So next one, please. So this is just to give you an overview about the present existing and planned SAP capacity and supply barriers. So you can see that, okay, there are certain hubs in the world where SAP production and SAP as industry is growing. So of course, US is there, Eastern US part and Western US part. And then UK, within Europe, UK, then Netherlands, these two are very prominent. And Finland also, they have some good footprints of SAP production already. And Germany is also gearing up. And within Asia, Singapore is basically leading. Singapore's government target, as a nation, their target, they're going to be the SAP-driven economy in the next decades, because they want SAP production to such a huge scale so that they can get the benefit that, okay, I mean, maybe other Asian countries will not be able to produce SAP, even India in the next decade. So then airlines which will be mandated to use SAP for flying to Europe or Asia or US, so they need the SAP. So from where they can get? So they can get it from Singapore. So that is the perspective. Singapore. Okay. Okay, next one, please. Okay, these are the certain examples that, okay, presently 1 MTPA plant, there is a Singapore-based plant, that is the biggest plant as on date, and the left side picture shows the Nevada plant in US, which is the first commercial municipal solid waste used SAP production plant. So which is producing almost 11 million gallon SAP yearly. So this is already commissioned and the plant is running from the last year. Next one, please. So this is the target. By 2050, we need 450 billion liter of SAF, so that aviation industry can meet their targets of net zero, which is equivalent to 360 MTPA. The present highest capacity plant in Singapore, that is to using the second generation feedstock, that is a 1 MTPA. So you can imagine just that, okay, that means how many numbers of plants will be required globally to meet the requirement of SAF by 2050. So that's a huge, huge demand. So next, please. Next, please. So this is just there are a couple of production routes, as I just told in the beginning. So one of those is through the Fischer-Tropsch synthesis route. Basically here you can see you are getting the municipal solid waste, or you can get the any kind of biomass. So you can convert it into the gasification route, convert it to syngas. Syngas can be converted to the, after the cleanup, it can be converted to the liquid, gas to liquid, to the Fischer-Tropsch technology. So ultimately your solid is converted to liquid through these processes, and finally liquid will be refined, upgraded to the grade to meet the specification for jet fuel. That is through the last one, that is last block, that is product upgrading route, which is basically a mini refinery, which will have, of course, your hydrocracker, hydrotreating, isomerization reactor, then fractionation, stripping, all these things. So this is the concept. So gasification is a technology which is very old, but which is the heart of this whole thing, because you are basically converting your solid into syngas, valuable synthesis gas, synthetic gas, through this gasification process. So gasification faces challenges with respect to the what kind of solid you are actually using. If there are many contaminants and many undefined solids materials, then that can create a big problem, challenge. So that is basically the most important and challenging part of this pathway, basically. Next one, please. So these are the various challenges with respect to the sourcing material, as Sarah was saying at the beginning. So we need a fixed source of the solid material, solid waste materials. As on that, as a country, India, of course, we generate lots of waste, including e-waste, so which can be actually utilized to produce SAP. But for that, we need data, proper data, to analyze that, okay, this is the basically this much of the quantities of the materials, whether it's a plastic, whether it is a food grade material. So this quantification through the data analysis is very required. So any country which is having the almost 2 decades of data, so European countries like UK, so we are working in UK various projects, so they have at least this 30 years of data. So based on that, we are analyzing what kind of contaminants can be generated, and that needs to be cleaned up before we convert it into the liquid. So, of course...
We have to close it now, because
okay.
Otherwise, rest of the speakers will get only 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you, thank you.